Okay, so we are live. So welcome to my audience, those watching live and those watching on the replay. For those of you watching in LinkedIn and want to catch this later, it's actually available on YouTube. I'll repost this as well so people can follow that. It's often a lot easier to find it on YouTube than go into your feed and click too many buttons to try and find this on the replay on LinkedIn. So my guest today, Pedro Moreno. Am I saying it correctly, Pedro?
You do, yeah.
Fantastic. So my opening monologue is exactly the same. I do not introduce my guests purely because I think I would do a very bad job. So would you mind just introducing yourself? Maybe just give some highlights, lowlights, whatever you want to give in terms of context for who you are, and maybe of what we're going to discuss today, and then we'll just jump into the conversation.
Cool, Colin. Yeah, well, thank you for having me here. And yeah, well, I I think I want to start with the reason why we got connected, and that is because of the way that we both use LinkedIn as to network and get acquainted with people. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm doing the efforts to grow my current company, which is Lumen Podcasts. We do remote podcast production, video podcast production, and the way that I got into that business, or the way that I founded that business, was because I am originally from Venezuela, and I'm part of the Venezuelan diaspora. Me and my girlfriend, we left our home country back in 2018. Now we are based in Uruguay, way down south. You are currently in the middle of winter. We are here in the middle of summer, humid summer. Um, and I studied cinema. My main passion was documentary photography, and cinema was the closest thing that I could go to school with that resembled uh, yeah, documentary photography. And as we left it all and came here to Uruguay, I found myself, well, freelancing, doing some jobs here and there through Upwork, as a video editor. And right around the time where the COVID-19 pandemic hit, almost all of my clients that I had as a video editor sort of shifted towards doing podcast. It sort of happened like en masse, and at the same time, more people were looking for me as a video podcast editor. So things went right for some years, and I could see that it was a better job for me to be working on video podcasts as opposed to just anything video. And I got to a point where I had so many clients that I had to bring some help in. At that point, it was around 3 years ago, and that sort of started my sort of like my new adventure into being a business owner, which I think it is a very, very different thing from just being a freelancer, because now the way that I view my business is trying to have my vision and my business partner vision come to life, and doing all of the things that are necessary for that vision to come to life. And one thing that I love about podcasts, even though it's sort of like I found it in the tracks along my ways in life, is that you can really do transcendent work. Is that you can really affect people's lives for better and unfortunately for worse. But I really like the medium as an expression of human connection in general as well. So that is something that I strive to do with the podcast that we produce. And yeah, that is briefly the story of why we're here.
That's amazing. So there's so many threads I kind of want to pull on. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know which one's the best one. So you talked about first of all, I want to go back to the university. So you sort of said about photography and
Yep.
documentary, and is that in terms of there wasn't a course, or universities don't seem to offer a course in photography, or it's just available in your area? What's
Well, Venezuela has always had a very robust public university system. And in society, like in our shared culture, it was known that the best opportunities came out of public universities. And the city that I grew up in, Merida, it is a city, or it is a university with a city inside. Basically, that is like the big saying. Everyone is tied from one way or another to the university, whether that's because their parents were teachers, were professors, or you yourself are a student, or your parent worked at some point in the university as a labor worker, as a physician to the hospital, or whatever. It is impregnated in life. I mean, it's in every single aspect in life. There's the Universidad de los Andes, which is the University of Los Andes. So there I saw the opportunity of, okay, well, maybe I could go to one of the careers that they offered that had in its curriculum photography, but it wasn't as developed as it was within the cinema curriculum. So I thought, well, I mean, this is not something that I imagine myself doing, but well, why not? And on and all, it was like the best decision that I could take, because I even sort of like rigged the system to, even though movies are moving pictures, I could still do, and I did several short films that were all made with stills. So, for example, I went to our the main hospital in our area, which serves to a tri-state area, and it was in complete shambles. And the way that I documented it, it was all in stills with a voiceover, and it worked really well as a documentary short film. And I did it my way with still pictures, as a not a photojournalist, I wouldn't call it, but more of a like a photo documentalist.
Well, I because when I come across creative people, I'm very much in awe. And one of the things that I've always said about myself is that I'm not very creative, but I don't think that actually is true. I think that we think of creativity as being the arts, artist,
Right.
etc.
Yeah.
But I think there's all types of expression of creativity, and it's interesting to see that you've kind of combined those things with stills with a documentary, and then we get onto the podcasting, and when you said it's about a video podcast, so I spoke to a girl called Anya, and she does vocal or audio podcasts.
Mhm.
That's where hers sort of her expertise is. A lot of people say to me about these lives that they're a podcast, and I kind
Mhm.
of
Me
said
included.
yes. Yeah, so I think sometimes the word podcast can just mean one thing that encompasses everything. I The only difference that I would say for me with this and a podcast is this is unscripted, unedited.
Mhm.
It goes out live. If I mess up, I mess up, and I've never really seen that as a problem. And I know some people have sort of said that that's a challenge for them, but for some reason it's felt more genuine just to have these conversations. And
Right.
I mentioned this on the live before, but where the editing part, I've never really got into. It was almost like a one of those things that I would like to, but I feel that the perfectionist side of me would start to just be overrun, and I just wouldn't actually publish. And I could imagine myself being up very late hours just trying to get something just perfect that was never going to
Yeah.
be perfect, but only in my eyes, and no one would notice any difference. And so it was not never a conscious thing. I kind of went into these lives just like that, but it serves very well because I just go, okay, it's done, it's out there, and I can take them down if I want to,
Mhm.
but I don't really go and edit. And I think that serves to keep my perfectionist side at bay. But your world, in terms of editing, is that where you came from? Like that you would take someone's files, they were on a podcast, and you would edit it down? Is that how it started?
Well, as a freelancer who edited videos, it was sort of like that. And the way that that translated into podcasts was that, well, people were recording their meetings and their conversations on Zoom, and we're doing like these type of remote conversations turned podcast. And I would say that you're right. Podcasts have become an umbrella for a whole host of different things. I mean, there's even live podcast, which, that seems just like a tag that you would throw around there. And it differs so much of what like an NPR type of podcast can be. It's two very different products, but can live under the same umbrella, essentially. And I do understand and I empathize a lot with how the perfection side of you can overtake and completely paralyze any type of production, because you could even, you know be in the details of like the how the width of this line separating us, and make
Yeah.
it just perfect, and you can spend hours on it. Or try and get it, like the nitty gritty things that don't really matter to anyone, rather than the conversation, the essence, the substance that you
Mm.
are sharing with another person, and how that impacts another person as well. So the way that I helped during a long time my clients was that we would polish their narrative, their discourse, essentially. That doesn't mean necessarily censoring people, but rather taking care of the audience that was going to be in touch with this content that they were making. And since podcasting is a way of just democrat, yeah, like being a hold on, democratizing, yeah, the conversations, and being able to reach a whole host of different people from anywhere in the world. Well, that means that people that are not trained in media, talking in front of the camera, in front of a microphone, they will mess up. Like you and I, we will mess up. And maybe those things are, you know, little details that maybe the audience don't really need to listen. Or maybe if I forget how to say a word in a in a language that's foreign to me, well, then I can have another take, inform my
Mm.
editor that we're going to try and get that a little bit better, and do it that way. Or we're trying to pace the conversation as well. Do we ramble too much? Are we really taking care of the audience here? Are we just talking about, are we chit chatting? Are we talking about things that nobody really cares about, just us? And the magic about podcasting is that, well, there is a market for everyone. And depending on how long you decide to keep going, well, maybe those ramblings and those sort of like mistakes will actually appeal to a certain public. Maybe there'll be like a market out there. But it all depends on how fast do you want to go towards that goal. And if the decision is I want to go as fast as possible, then yes, like doing a show that is highly produced, highly um, edited, and highly thought about the audience will do you the trick of getting to that goal way faster. But if what fuels you is just your curiosity and your excitement of just hanging out with others and talking about topics that you find other people fascinating and just sharing it openly, then you'll probably get somewhere, but a little slower, if you will. Just like Joe Rogan did, for example. Well, he's like the top podcast in the world after he published 1,000+ episodes. Now I think 2,000+. So it's been a work of, I believe, like 15 to 17 years of publishing every single week. So that is something that people take for granted. Yes, there's a lot of space for conversational podcasts, but the work that's needed for a host to be great, to take to bring them the best out of your guest and to make a really entertaining show, well, there's your answer. Maybe 800 episodes.
Yeah, I think so. Part of these conversations is as you explained. So I didn't really have a vision. I started these out of more frustration than anything else, but I enjoyed having the conversation, and um, so I get to meet people like you, and I'm blessed and grateful for that. And like I've said to you before, we have this conversation before we have the live, just to agree that you're comfortable and I'm comfortable to have a conversation. And one of those things is, I think we live in a world where we want instant results. Everything's got to be a hack. It's got to be successful, etc.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I've signed up for all of that. I've done, get rich quick schemes, the lot. And since I've done this feels very genuine for me. And yeah, there is in the back of my mind, I keep mentioning this now, but I'm self-funded to do this, and this money runs out sort of July, August time. And I try to I'm either avoiding, or I'm being very strategic and just not making that the center of my universe, and actually just carrying on having the conversations. So I'm either delusional or brave. I'm not sure which is right at the moment. But
Right.
I like these conversations, and when we spoke before, you were sort of saying, sometimes an idea is over here and then it goes over here to get to here, and
Yeah.
you kind of sort of, when you were expressing it, it was like, oh well, no, it's good to just sort of say the thing and get done. But I actually, for me, I much prefer understanding how you got to the end point,
Right.
and that's fascinating because I don't think we take the time to talk to people, and just without that pressure of, okay, I've got to deliver value. And I understand the sort of chit chat part of it,
Yep.
but I think that chit chat can also be entertaining and a way to relax people and just to get into the conversation. I remember having this conversation, and it wasn't until almost an hour was up that effectively this amazing bombshell came. I was like, whoa, okay, didn't know that was coming. And
Right.
sometimes for me, that just takes that time. And I don't know how people are consuming this, as in, yes, they'll watch it on probably LinkedIn or YouTube. But if it's the same way as I watch YouTube, I'm probably cooking or doing something else. So I've got my headphones in and I'm doing something else and I'm listening to it. And I feel that the conversation and the dynamic between guests and the passion when you find something that someone wants to talk about, that goes a long way. And so I don't care too much about the aesthetics of like the background. There's nothing fancy, there's no studio, don't have the money for a studio anyway. So but if I'd have worried too much about that stuff, I definitely wouldn't have got started. I just and by doing that, I kind of found a rhythm. But to your point, yes, this is a slow growing thing.
Yep.
But I think also the people that are interested in having conversations are more of those people that are deep into conversations and understanding things. So when I've reached out to some people, their response to me was, well, how many impressions do you get? What's your audience? Before they would even commit. And so it was very much a business transactional exchange. And I was like,
Right.
oh, and I really get it. I really get it. But I actually wanted to have a genuine conversation. It wasn't about, I can't promise you what the outcome of this is going to be, etc. I wanted to have the conversation because I thought it was important. And I do a lot of this selfishly, the conversations I want to have. And I think if I can have those conversations, there should be people out there. How I connect with them and how that audience grows, I mean, I put very little effort into it. I just grow it on LinkedIn. but I can understand um, all of what you've said, and yet I've chosen to do something very slow. And there is a downside to that, certainly from a money perspective, and growing a business. Um, but I said this yesterday, actually. I think the people that I've connected with, I can have really deep conversations, and I could message and just go, okay, hi, could you help me out? Could you connect me to someone, or do you know something? Rather than just this volume business that I've clipped just to go viral or do something.
Right.
Because I don't, and I said yesterday, I don't even know what I would do if I went viral. I don't even know what that means. I have no
Yeah.
product or service to sell. Just maybe more people would be engaged in what I was doing, and that would maybe make it more enticing for other people to come on. But I love the people I speak to. When I first met you, I think it was the first word that you said was Colin, and I was like, wow, your voice is amazing. And it was just like,
Thank you.
you said nothing else, and it was that, and I was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wow, you had me from that. And I'm like, I'm not thinking strategically. Maybe I should, but to be honest, I'm enjoying it so much. And so I guess I'll throw that over to you. Do you think I'm doing something, or I'm wasting an opportunity there? What's your thoughts on all of that?
Not at all, because I think you're doing this without pressure of turning it into something. I mean, if if you get the resources, it seems to me like what you're doing with your own resources, you'll keep doing with more resources, because this is something that I can tell you feel passionate about. And I think nowadays is the perfect excuse to get to meet someone without really an agenda as well. Whereas before, maybe it was like the casual, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Now it's like, can we have a conversation over a podcast, a a streaming or whatever, and just be open and not trying to sell anything, but really having an honest, down to earth, no cell phones inside, no distractions whatsoever either, but just try and zoning in with the one that you're talking to. I think this is like a way to not network, but really get to know another person, and like past that threshold of acquaintance to maybe even friend, and someone that you can count on or rely on based on the quality of the connection that you had with the person. One thing that happens a lot with B2B podcasts is that, yes, we need to make it as packed with value as we can, because we have a promise there. I mean, if we're trying to have people watch it, well, you need to give them a reason that they'll take something out of this. But if you're having conversations for the sake of having conversations, and for the sake of getting to know another person, and just see what comes out of it, I'm fully on board with it, because it's another, I would say, wonderful way to connecting with people that are nowhere near you. Like, you're currently in the UK, I'm in Uruguay, in two very different parts of the world, two different languages as well. And if it weren't for this excuse, I would say, we wouldn't be able to get to know each other. And maybe, if someone gets something out of this conversation, well, then great. It's like, yeah, it's not like a wasted opportunity. It's a opportunity that we created as a result of the decision of publishing this, making it live, and making it public. But otherwise from that, like, if you don't have like a specific agenda, like a specific goal that you need to reach, then I would say the value is in the journey, essentially, in what you're doing.
Yeah. That really aligns to everything I think about it. And um, so when you were talking, the title of this was basically, people seem to think about podcast as almost content. And I'm like, yeah, I've never thought about it as content. I thought, again, I think about these conversations quite selfishly, because I would have
Mhm.
never have got to meet you. I mean, we I think we bonded through the chat about sort of talking about money and like the ick of doing things. I think that was the conversation we had, and
Maybe I don't even remember why we got connected in the first place. I mean, I know it was
yeah,
LinkedIn, but other than that, I don't remember the
yeah,
root of it.
it's yeah. So there's no science to it. I'll explain how it works. So um, I I've committed to connecting with 20 people, 20 new people a day on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
If you do more than that, then ultimately LinkedIn doesn't like it. It looks like you're spamming people.
Right.
And so when I started that, it was okay. I just sort of connected with a few people. And then it starts to suggest, based on the last people you spoke to, you might be interested in this person.
Right.
And I went with that, and I was like, okay, I have no idea. So I just connect with people. And then there's a very soft sort of contact message. And then people either choose to reply or they don't. At first, I was a bit like, oh, that feels a bit creepy. Feels a bit like, oh, you're going to try and sell. There's a follow up message if people don't respond, and then people do respond, people don't, and so those first two messages are automated, but then I take over, because I think if someone's replied to me at any point, then I go back. I then trying to make a connection or something that I like. I'll look at your profile. I look at any content that you've done, anything, and then I just go from there. Because to be honest, I'm very interested in people. I'm quite curious by nature. I like to understand. And again, just to the point, our paths would have never have crossed. I can't imagine a world where they would actually have done. We're in different, time zones, probably industries, etc. But I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for that. And when I started this journey, I was really I was blown away, because when I worked for companies before, the only access to people that I had were the people inside the company, and maybe some of the clients, or maybe some of the vendors or software providers. And you'd work in project teams, and I got to meet some amazing people, because they weren't always in the same location. But now I'm like, wow, I get to speak to someone that's talking about podcasts and has got a history of this journey from one place to another. I'm like,
Yeah.
that blows me away. And I'm like, I I I feel that not imposter syndrome, but sometimes I'm like, how does that actually happen?
Yeah.
But it happens through being intentional and trying to connect with people. And I get it that people won't want to speak to me, but I'm really okay with it. And then the people that do, then I can have a conversation. Some just want to say, yeah, that's it, that's fine, and okay. But others,
Right.
like you and I, had a dialogue, and then and we go from there. And I found you hugely interesting. I actually wanted to pay you this compliment, because I saw one of your content yesterday, and it was an edited view where you were there showing your laptop, and I can't exactly remember what you were talking about, but I was so impressed with the way that you cut all of this together. It felt
Mhm.
not comical, it was just really, I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I was like, okay, because we'd had one conversation, like, sort of not face to face but virtually,
Yeah.
and I was like, that's very cool, because what I
Thank
took
you.
away from our conversation last time was that you're quite you think a lot about things. You're quite quiet and considered, and I think when we think about podcasts and people like that, we think of you have to be extroverted or sort of outgoing or speak all the time or be very poignant. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
and you were quite quiet, and I think what I took from that was like, okay, you would like to maybe be a bit more outgoing to fit in. But what I saw in your content, I was like, that's amazing. That's genius. It was so cleverly done. And I was like, yeah, yeah. And I watched it. And I was like, that's so cool. And I was like, it wasn't comical, but it was like this very relatable thing. And then, like, the way that you approached the camera, and I was like, I wanted to know what went into that. Was that a lot of work? Was that a lot of editing? But it seemed so natural. And I was like, it seemed to flow really well. And I was like, how did you do that?
Well,
So,
just for context, it was a video that I thought about doing because I co-host a podcast with my business partner and mentor Tim Conley, and I've been doing a very lousy, disappointing myself job of promoting it. And I thought, okay, well, I've been recording some videos in front of the camera in a very podcast setting, and I know that the way that we are currently consuming content in our day to day, it is mostly from like a TikTok style influence. And I mean, whether you like it or not, that's the way it is. And even I would say that that comes even from earlier. From there's a excellent YouTuber called Casey Neistat, who's actually a filmmaker as well, and he does. I mean, all of his videos have great rhythm to them, and I think what you mentioned is the rhythm that I was able to have with this video that I recorded. It comes from that school of montage on when we're talking about it in from like an editing standpoint, where maybe we can have a single shot of just two people talking to each other, and then we will move to like a 3 minute sequence that's filled with music and with really action cuts here and there to make the thing very dynamic. The distinction that you learn in school is that, well, there's a time and a place for everything, and it doesn't have to be always that format nor the other, and you're able to blend the two. And that is something that me and my team were bringing to podcast and video editing in general as well, like having that know-how from certain from us being film graduates, essentially, and filmmakers as well. But what I'm trying to do in front of the camera is feeling more comfortable with different sides of myself, essentially. Like for instance, that video that you're referencing, I try to really go into a place in my behavior, general behavior, where I'm not dull, I'm not like numb. I'm a little bit more energetic, and I'm really more passionate about the thing that I'm showing, because I am. I'm just trying to let myself feel that excitement and try to communicate it visually also to whoever stumbles upon this video. And that way I'll be able to, brick by brick, build a little bit more of this camera persona that I'm able to show, and maybe have someone like you say, well, that was a very cool video, I want to see more. And then, well, from this feedback, I'll probably have to script another one and see what else can I do, because I'm currently in like a creative block for that type of video. But um I really appreciate your comments, and yeah, thank you.
So I have a question. So for you to get in that zone to record all of that, is that you? So the reason I say this is because I think I have the potential to be a lot more than I am.
Hmm.
But I have a lot of insecurities and a lot of things in that get in my way. And if I focus on those, then I can see the results are not as good as they could be.
Hmm.
If I'm able to let some of those go, then I show up very differently. Doesn't mean that I'm this extrovert. It just means that this weight that I carry around my neck isn't there, and I can just have
You're
fun
more
and enjoy
comfortable,
it. Yeah,
right?
exactly. And I'm actually spending a lot of time working on just sort of loving myself and just being okay with who I am. I've
Yeah.
come a long way, but was that the same for you? Because when I think what I saw on screen really felt like, yeah, that's felt like you, just like this very cool person that it was very slick. It was just very like, yeah, I'd love to talk to that guy. But how was that? Was that acting for you, or was that letting go of some of the insecurities? Where was that for you?
I would say striking when the iron's hot. When you get like that spark of in my case, like an idea for a video that I will record, not in the podcast setting, but that I will just place my phone and I'll hit record, and I do have to sort of act because I have a script in mind, and I won't just sit down and talk to it because I know it won't give me like the rhythm that I need to create. But I had this idea of, okay, well, my hook is going to be, I have I have let this go during a very long time. Okay, and I usually when I come back from working, which I generally do, like at cafes and stuff, I I go through my front door. I take my backpack off, and I sort of like, yeah, take that weight off. But I found like this inspiration from Casey Neistat, who's a very dynamic personality as well. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll have this as a scroll breaker, if you will. Like, okay, I have something to show you. And then as I'm stepping into those shoes of, okay, a little bit more energy, then I'll let myself go. Like, for instance, I still needed to turn on the slide behind me. So, okay, I'll just do that and be cognizant of, I am recording myself and I have to talk to as if someone's watching me. Okay, then, well, we're all said and done. I'm just going to let myself be, because I know like the person who's editing this is going to be me, and I won't be so hard on myself. Like, I won't be afraid of saying like whatever, because I'll be able to cut it in any case. And I don't feel like that comfortable yet on giving my material, my footage, to someone else. But if I do, it'll probably be someone that I very much trust, that I know they won't judge me for the thing that I'm doing. But I would say, like in your case, is that when inspiration hits, that is the time and place for you to maybe drop it all and just do it. Because when you go ahead and do it and you get feedback like the one that you're just giving me, maybe you'll be able to put yourself in a position later on where maybe you don't have the inspiration for it, but you have done it in the past. And maybe you can recall what you were thinking, what you were feeling, and try and display that again and say, okay, well, I did it once. Can I do it again? And if it doesn't happen, well, that doesn't matter, because no one will see it. But if it goes right, then you feel comfortable, you'll publish it, and maybe you'll publish it again and again and again and again. You know, you build yourself up to this as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, as you were saying, you felt that sort of spark, and you said, right, okay, I'm just going to record this. Then I was thinking about podcasting, and you go, well, actually, podcasting's done at a certain point. You know, whether you have the availability of a studio or whenever your guest is available. I was like, how does that work for me? Because you can't always guarantee you have the same sort of energy, the same sort of thing. And like I said to you,
For conversations?
yeah, exactly. But I actually realized, so in preparation for all of my conversations, I have a glass of water. I put these bands on. So normally I've had a shower, so I feel fresh, clean my teeth, feel good. And then I put these on, and it's a bit sort of superstitious. Like so once I didn't have them, and I said to my guest just before we go, like, I'm sorry, I've got to go and put them on.
Okay.
It's almost like it's my way of preparing. And I didn't really
Yeah.
think about that. I was just like, okay, I know I need to do this. Do not disturb on my phone, so I'm not interrupted. And I went to write it down once. I was like, no, you can just remember it. And it's like putting on an armor, but it's sort of putting you into that headspace of, okay, this is done, okay, this is done. Now my focus is there. So yeah, it's maybe not quite the same, like, you know, the fun, entertaining inspiration that you had, but it's something similar that I can recreate over and over again when I need to do it. And yeah, I don't take all the bangles off and stuff afterwards, but yeah, maybe that's my way of doing it.
Well, the one thing that I really appreciated from the discovery conversation, or maybe like the prep call that we had, was that your calmness and openness is really infectious as well. And I felt very quickly like like the impression of talking to someone who, yes, is open, but at the same time will just take all of the things that I'm sharing with them and try and get what's the most interesting part for him. Like, you're not there with an agenda. You're trying to really be present, and I can tell like you are present, and you're not thinking about like the next question that you're holding on onto, but you're rather okay listening to it, taking it all in, and that allows you to have like a better flow of conversation. I believe like recording videos alone might be a little bit easier for people to get like that different energy on screen, but with conversations it's difficult because it all depends mainly on like the chemistry that you have with the other person that you're talking. I mean, you might be very high up, but if your guest is having like a bad day or just isn't in a mood, well, then it's going to be off. Like, that is something that we deal with uh, every single time as well when we're producing shows, is that how can we make this more entertaining, and how can we present both the host and the guest in their best light. So I would say, if you were to take this project and package it as a podcast, because I don't want to say like if you take it more seriously. No, I want to say if you package it as a podcast, I think like the your main strength is creating a space where people can develop some ideas, be heard, and and just see where the conversation flows to. Because I think you have this great ability to bring people towards their most interesting side as well. That might not be how podcasts are an asset, and how we turn video podcasts into authority, leads, and long-term legacy. But maybe we're able to have more honest conversations with you, with me, and not really try to sell anything, but to present the actual person behind the title, behind the business, and that also speaks to people as well. And I would say that from knowing you and that conversation that we had, and seeing the clips of the different conversations that you've shared as well, I think this is like the best strength that you have in this format.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. When I started, I wasn't really quite sure what it would be, and I think my best advice is just get started. And I know Michael Hers. Do you know
Yep.
Michael Hers?
First.
Yeah.
Yep.
He said,
Great guy.
just start and grow as you go, which I think is super, in my mind, correct, because you don't know
Yep.
what you don't know, and fear can paralyze you. Just go out there. And I think when I first started, I thought, there's going to be like millions of people tuning in. I don't know that anyone watched any of the early stuff, which is actually, if you know that, it brings the barrier down, like, takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
And then when some people have asked me, okay, what sort of questions are you going to ask? And I was like, no, I don't ask questions. I have like an idea. I think I showed you. I'll show you. Like, there's like a little mind map that I put
Mm-hmm.
together, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just a flow of conversation, things that either we talk about in the discovery call, just things that I want to know or I think might be interesting. If we hit any of those, none of them, all of them, I'm okay. It's just a reference point, just to make myself feel that I've done some prep. But nothing in there is sensationalized. There's nothing I've never, and I guess, we have all these viral clips and stuff like that. People want, sort of something sensational to sort of say, oh, this is, this
Yeah.
person said that. I'm really not interested in any of that. There's no gotchas in my conversation. It's actually about having deeper conversations. And my job is, for me, is just to understand the other person and just go, okay, that's great. And because I think we live in this world where we've got to be this top 1%. And I know we can talk about it because I saw your other post about the diary of the CEO. And I think,
Yeah.
people are trying to copy that format or look at that. Um,
Yeah.
and whilst I understand that, I'd much rather do what I'm doing because it feels very genuine and I can keep doing it. I could do this all day long. I'd need a bit of a break, but I just really enjoy it. I'm still not getting tired of it. I thought, okay, said I would do this for a year, and um, at one point, I was like, well, am I going to get tired of just asking people? No, like every time I have a conversation, it's like you. I looked at your work and I was like, yeah, this is really interesting. And I think for me, there is this world where there's a lot of negativity. There's this top 1% trying to sensationalize it. And there's this so much beauty in between where there's this human level and it's just
Right.
connecting with people just can explain what's going on or what's not right or what's going well. And I really like that because I've never seen myself as this. I've always seen myself as average, and I don't like to use the word average because I think it gives the wrong connotation. But I
Right.
think mm, I always wanted to be like this top 1% or just be really good looking or whatever it was, fast runner, anything. And I was like, no, no, but the real world is here. And I feel that there's so much going on in the world that people are trying to set their expectations to be up here. And I'm like, no, like there's so much beauty and knowledge and wisdom here. And I'd rather play here and talk to people at this level, not trying to impress, just be myself. And by doing that, it sort of says to your comment, it creates this space where people are open enough to talk about things. And that for me, if other people hear that, then they'll go, oh, okay, I don't need to be the 1%. That's often fake or it's an expectation. And you don't actually want to be that 1%. You don't want to live that person's life because 99% of the time it's not what
Yeah.
you signed up for. And it's
Yeah.
more this real world. And I think there's a lot of trust and a lot of there's so much wisdom here, but we overlook it because we're looking for some top 1%. Will that make sense?
Yeah. I think the one thing with the top 1% in that case is they're able to package it way better than we are. Because one thing that I have like a ton of problems with is with clickbaiting and trying and package it in a way that's very yeah, sensational in a very disingenuous way,
Mm,
just trying to get the click, but at what cost? I think the striving for quote unquote greatness, or not, I wouldn't even say greatness, but just like virality and size of audience really take people and their teams into I would say dark path where they're pulling some strings, I would even say like emotional strings that are borderline manipulation, you know,
mm,
just to get that click and to get that title and to sort of like lie with success. Yes, one of their podcasts might be the most listened to, but what does that really mean? I mean, are you really informing people? Are you really bringing value to people? How are you doing that? Are you bringing some good to the world? Or are you using a whole bunch of really deceptive tools to get those views and to get those numbers? And the downsides that may then we can all see are like misinformation, like accusations of people being misled and doing all of the things just for the sake of attention. My favorite podcasts are ones that I discover and that have changed my life because of the quality of the conversation that have been in them. And sometimes those those podcasts have come to me, whether they're suggested and I'm in like a rabbit hole of just YouTube, or they have come to me as a direct suggestion from a friend, an acquaintance, or whatever. And they're mostly not clickbaity. there are things that maybe if I wasn't in the mood, I wouldn't click them and I wouldn't listen to them. But once I do, because they come from this direct source, I give them a very high chance of, okay, let's see what happens here. And they're often amazing surprises. And that is something that I love about podcasts, and sharing this information, that you can be very open with people, or you can try and get really mischievous, maybe in a way as well, and create in a I would say unnatural way those emotions, just to sell that emotion, like, oh, look who cried on my podcast. Okay, but why? I mean, was it your intention to make that person cry? Was it
Mm.
the depth and the openness and how vulnerable you both were on that conversation that made that other person cry? Is that why I'm being sold to, that I need to see this because X person cried? Or am I being just manipulated for a click?
Mm.
And that is something that I have gripes with. And well, I mean, it is the nature of the game as well. Like, don't hate the player, hate the game. But I think like we all have some agency in how we do things, and and you mentioned the video that I did, talking about diary of a podcast there's of a CEO. um and the problem that I have with that is that, I mean, it is a great format, no doubt, like it works a ton, and many people, no matter their size of their audience and their podcast, are implementing, us included, that format. The thing is, when you're having really sensitive and touchy conversations, like things that have to be dealt with like white gloves, really gently, how do you do that? Are you still putting that same format, that sort of like James Cameron, um, explosions and sharks and hooks and booms and everything on this conversation? Or are you presenting it in a way that allows the audience to be warned that what you're about to see and listen, you really need to walk into this room with patience, with an open mind as well, and not judge, and not run to judgment, because what you're about to see might just be, we don't fully know, but might just be a very vulnerable condition of a human being. And don't rush to judge the guest or the host for having this conversation. Maybe just try and value the fact that this conversation is happening and two people are being sort of brave on touching this very sensitive topic. But the way that you present that, the way that you package that, really, really, really matters, because that is the way that people are going to walk into this room. That is how people are going to judge that conversation or this topic that people are discussing. And I've seen this, time and time again, where people get quote unquote canceled because of the nature of conversations that they're having or the topics that they're talking about, just for being public. But also they're deemed canceled because of the package that they put that conversation in as well. For instance, I listened to, do you know Shia LaBeouf, the actor?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he had a conversation with another actor, that his podcast is called Real Ones. And Shia, apparently, went through a very, very rough time in his life, and was both victim and, how do you say it, like the one who inflicts pain as well.
Hmm.
And I think he encountered like a trial because of domestic abuse, and that he was the one that was violent towards, his partner. And had I not been the person that shared this conversation with me, share it because of the vulnerability of the conversation, because of the bravery of these people talking together and putting that in public. Like, you can still not forgive this person, and you can still judge this person, but just the fact that they're on a platform and they are being held, yes, accountable, but also having like an open floor for them to talk to someone and to see the condition, the human condition, even from the other side. Like, okay, what led you to being violent with your partner? And then them explaining all of the things, and not, like excusing him, but understanding humans. And that is something that I really, really appreciate as well, that we're able to explore through this medium. And I wouldn't like that show to be canceled because of that conversation that they had. It was presented to me like, be warned, we're going to be talking about this, and that, and you can form your opinion on our guest, but do so at the end, when after you're seeing this uncut, unedited, uncensored version.
Yeah.
And that is something that I really like about podcasts in general, is that um, you can be vulnerable, you can express, and you can have like the real human condition in it. And at the same time, you can be deceived, and you can be witnessing the emotions being manufactured just for the sake of clicks as well. So, um, and I believe, well, that is also part of the human condition, like the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, it's I think there is a big responsibility in how these things
Yes.
get packaged up. And I mean, let's just go back to the Diary of the CEO. I mean, I've watched quite a lot of those, but then I stopped watching. I kind of turned off because it was just because the format is done very well, like you say, but then it was all very sensationalized, and then they're very all the clips at the beginning, and you go, oh, okay, then you have to watch all the way to the end and then realize actually they've just clipped it where there's one word missing and it's not actually what you thought at the beginning. And I get it,
Yeah.
I really get it.
It's
And
not a clear premise. I mean,
yeah, and that's how I used to think. Like newspapers in the UK used to sensationalize headlines, and then you read it and you go, oh, okay.
yeah,
But I think the challenge with that is that with people's attention, they might not watch past, those first sort of sound bites, clips, etc., and they might
yeah,
walk away. So let's say the Diary CEO is like an hour, 2 hours sometimes. They've just only watched that beginning bit and haven't bothered to watch the rest. They've gone away
yeah,
with an opinion that this person has done something bad, and you go, no, no, no. And so yeah, but I also understand, that's the game, marketing to get in front of people, etc., and that's how you grow. But there's been some great guests on there, but for some reason I just don't want to watch it anymore, and I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it just misaligns with my values or something. I'm not
yeah,
quite sure. Like, and yeah, it's very odd, but that I and again, I try not to do it with the titles of these conversations, and I try to often come back to the titles that I've put on here, because there is clickbaiting, and I when I see it on YouTube, there's a guy that I follow, and you can see the clickbaiting. He was talking about a new car coming out, and then you click in it
mhm,
and you go, no, this is not a new car. You've just explained it in a way that it's like it's got a new button inside the car. It's not a new car.
yeah,
And I go, and I really understand it. And I don't know if that's me that has a problem with it, and I should just get in the game and just enjoy it that way and just play it. But it feels very disingenuous to do that, and I'd rather filter my audience out that way, and they go, yeah, I'm not interested. Or like you say, someone send this to someone else and say, look, watch this. This is great. And I'd rather grow that way, because I'd rather have an audience where they're not that as many followers, but they're people that really like the conversations. That feels a much better use of my time. Um,
yeah,
and again, I don't know if I'm fooling myself, because at some stage I need to make this into a business or make it work in some way, and I'm not quite sure how to do that. Um, but I'd rather, because I feel that the trust within the conversation is so important, and that's something I value a lot.
yeah,
And you can easily sort of chip away at that trust because of how you're marketing it. So yeah, it's those different angles, and I'm not sure where I sit. So I don't. Yeah, yeah, it's one of those
Well, I would
things.
say like to bring. I know we're 5 seconds away from an hour, but let's say if we can extend this just 10 minutes,
Yeah, 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 of course.
and see if we can take the packaging of these conversations to a place where maybe you can monetize it. So, okay, do you have some insights on your audience?
In No, not necessarily. So my audience are the people I've connected with on LinkedIn. So
Mhm.
I started out targeting CEOs, founders, because that's who I wanted to help originally in my business.
Yep.
Probably business owners, small business owners. That's where I'd say generally. Um, I want to say in terms of split of gender, uh, I don't really know. I'd say
Okay.
females. So most of my guests are also females as well.
Okay. A different question then. What what have been some of the comments that you've received out of these conversations from your audience? What is Have you had some comments really displaying some value that they have taken out of these conversations?
More from the guests. So I think a lot of the audience that
Okay.
turn up are known by the guests themselves, and they're quite
Hmm.
supportive of that person. A lot of people, I would say, more around well-being than anything else. If someone's looked after themselves, or um, you know, have, have, maybe they're not looking for external validation. They're looking after themselves physically, mentally. That sort of thing seems to land quite well, because I ended up connecting with a lot of coaches that own their own businesses. I think they seemed quite supportive of that side of the world.
Okay, so you've gotten more out of the conversations from the perspective of the audience that the guest might bring. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in that light, say you have a guest that this person has been on dozens of shows, and this person already has, let's say, like a faithful audience of 25,000 people. Like if you book this person, there will be 25,000 people on this live, and maybe triple that on YouTube, something like that. I would say that your strengths would match this type of show in where you'll bring something different out of this guest than what the audience is usually it's used to seeing. you know Maybe you can go in a little bit deeper. Maybe you can have a space where they feel more comfortable, where they feel not judged, where they feel vulnerable, and where they're able to maybe give you advice, maybe get advice on certain topics, certain questions, certain pain points, and explore their humanity as well. One thing that I used to, well, I still do, but during a very long period of time, I followed. Well, I have two examples. Do you know Jordan Peterson? The
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's now very infamous, but I was very much into his talks during 2017 till 2020, something like that. And he had many public appearances, and I gotten used to like his usual topics and the usual way that he would explain things and the usual problems that he would go into. But every once in a while, he would have conversations with people that were able to take him into a very different topic, into different places, or deeper into a topic that his audience, were already acquainted with, but lack the depth and the quality of the conversation in general for this person just to allow, in this case Jordan, to dig in even deeper, to not try and think of, okay, what can I sell? Am I selling my book? Am I selling a course or whatever? Or am I debating someone and am I trying to win, or am I trying to understand this person? Am I trying to understand this problem as well? And it happened to me also with do you know Chris Doe?
Mm.
He's a figure on that he brings education for creative people, meaning business education for agency owners, from
Oh, I
designers,
think
video
he
po-
wears the baseball cap a lot. Is that
yep,
him?
yep,
Yeah, yeah, okay,
yep,
yeah, 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 yeah.
right. Well, he has done many public appearances as well. He has his own podcast and has other people on, and he goes into different podcasts as well. And you can overall get a sense of what he's all about. Like, he will talk about sales, he will talk about marketing, he will talk about branding as well, but maybe he won't talk so much about physical prep, uh, for example, or he won't talk about maybe the inner workings of what freelancers and solopreneurs go, and the challenges that they face, or the things that he himself went through, because maybe the person that is interviewing him isn't as curious on those topics as maybe he'd like for them to be, and it doesn't allow for that the terrain to be fertile in in in,
Mm.
in a very brute way. I would say that if you were to think about turning this into ways that you can monetize it and bring some maybe partners, maybe some sponsors, or having private conversations as well, or you being, like the the one who's bringing different people together to have a conversation as well. I would say that that is your biggest strength, like to lay out the groundwork for these type of conversations to happen, and to allow people to express themselves, and for your curiosity to lead them into places that maybe they weren't really expecting, but they were eager to talk to someone about as well. And if their audience is big enough, then it'll nurture their audience as well, especially if they have like a, uh, personal brand. Maybe I have a personal brand about doing video podcast, and say that I had, like, I don't know, like 100,000 followers. Knock on wood. But then you lead me towards talking about vulnerability. You lead me towards talking about how brainy I am, how I overthink so much, and the ways that I have been paralyzed in my work because of how much I think of things. I would say that is, if I were you, and if I were thinking about these things, that's what I would sell. I would sell conversations that go deeper than people thought.
Yeah. I am. There's. Thank you for that. There's part of me that is sometimes nervous to go that deep. But I think I often am able to sense if someone is okay to go that deep. And I know,
Hmm.
before we, in the discovery call, I explained a lot about my life and what I've gone
Yep.
through.
Yep.
And sometimes to put that out in public feels a bit hard, and I don't want to do that for other people. So I just, yeah, sometimes I'm a bit hesitant, and I think maybe I need to trust in that and lean into it a bit more. Um, but yeah, it's very interesting because I uh, I do believe that we often want deeper conversations. Certainly, I do. I'm okay with chit chat, but I would much rather have one deep conversation and know so much. Um,
I don't know how you did it, but the discovery call that we had, it was one of the deepest conversations that I've had in 2025. And I mean, I've dealt with family emergencies this year, and I've had very difficult conversations with cousins, with my parents, with my partner, with friends, and on and all. Still, one of the deepest conversations that I was able to have with another person was with you. So I understand your hesitancy on, is that even a word? I don't know. Let's go with it.
Yeah.
How hesitant can you be with maybe leading people towards a place they don't want to go, but at the same time, you're not holding a gun towards their head, you're not
Yeah.
saying, oh, whether talk about this or I'm going to blow up your um your other half that is tied up to barrels of gas. Shout out Dark Knight. You know, I think especially like business owners, and I was listening to Hormozy talk about this. Business owners will work their ass off, and they will do so for an outcome, and then that outcome will happen, and no one will tell them like, oh man, good work, like all those nights that you spent just grinding away and sleeping just 3 hours, good work, man, it was all worth it. No one will say you that, no one but yourself. But I guarantee that these people are dying to talk about anecdotes from those nights, like the night that, I don't know, they spent the whole night working on a book and something happened in their building and the power went off and they had to, I don't know, turn the power on with a bike that they had laying around or whatever. Those are like the insights that go beyond talking about advice and authority from someone who's trying to sell. In this case, I'm trying to sell more podcast, cool, but it goes a little bit beyond that. you know if I really want to get into it, I want to talk about how it was very difficult for me to start a video podcast agency because I had zero business knowledge, and I'm able to talk about that freely now, well, because I'm a little bit over that hump. But that is very personal, and that is intimate, and that is vulnerable. But it is still not surface level, but it's not the type of thing that I will go deep into with my therapist or something like that. It's not like I'm talking about problems that I have with my parents or my partner. It is still something that is something that I find valuable that other people will receive as well. So I wouldn't say like, I understand the fear and maybe you being hesitant about it, but this is also how great stories are crafted. And I would say for you to listen to How I Built This. It is a great podcast with an amazing host that does a ton of research on his guests and is able to bring these backstories from how they build this business and how it feels like it builds up their hero journey in a general sense. And I think like this type of conversations that you're able to have with people are just that. You're enabling them to build their hero journey, and with that, you're making your own hero journey as well.
I think that last sentence
Mic drop.
is, yeah, exactly. That's where we need to end it. I thank you. It's you've given me a lot to think about just in that last part and the rest as well. So yeah, you've kind of blown me away. So that's amazing. But I think let me just finish with a compliment as well. So thank you, obviously, for the discovery call that we had, and for me that was very deep and meaningful. I was able to share a lot about my past, and some of that was quite raw and new, and I did that because who you were. So and and we got to talk about stuff, so that was very meaningful for me as well. I don't often share that stuff, so that says a lot about you as well. But moreover, into this conversation as well, there's so much wisdom and knowledge, and like you said, when you started your agency, you didn't know anything. There's so much knowledge in you that you clearly understand so much more than, I don't know if you give yourself credit for, but there's so much wisdom in there. And I think you've got this ability, like this comical timing, creativity. I can see it in you, like I said about that post that you did. It's smart, it's funny, it's engaging. But beyond that, I've had an hour and 15-minute conversation with someone that clearly knows what they're talking about, has a lot of values, has a lot of things going for them. So, yeah, for me, it's even more enlightening than anything else, and it's been a real pleasure, real pleasure, and I don't say that lightly.
Thank you, Colin.
But yeah, we're gonna have to end it there. But where should people find you if they're looking for someone to help them with podcast advice, editing? They come and find you. They go Lumen Videos, Lumen.
That's lumencasts.com. Yep.
Okay. Or do they find you on LinkedIn? Where's the best place?
Well, I think like the easiest place is Lumencasts, and there we'll have many buttons where you can schedule a call with me and my team. And if not, LinkedIn is the place that will work best as a in a professional sense. And also, we're on Instagram as well as at lumen.casts as well. I want to say my handle for my personal Instagram, but it is all in Spanish, and it is it won't do me very good because it's arroba. It's like saying like the at.
Okay.
But yeah, well, anyways, we'll drop that as a link.
Yeah,
Thank
share
you,
it
Colin.
with me, and I'll drop it into the LinkedIn.
Okay.
But yeah,
Cool.
real pleasure. People watching this are hopefully going to reach out to you, just not only for obviously the skills that you do, but the knowledge that you have and how you can help people. Because I've walked away with a much deeper insight into how things should be, and and just how I should maybe sort of not change how I'm doing things, but think about it going forward. And that's effectively my business. So that's a huge win for me in terms of a conversation. So thank you so much, Pedro. It was amazing.
Appreciate it, Colin.
All right, man. Take care, and we'll speak soon.
You too.
Bye.